and I was surrounded by super, uber powerful people. Because it really isn't a pop record. It was slightly whitewashed.
Mariah's first single, Vision of Love, was both critically and commercially successful. It spent 4 weeks at #1 in the US and was nominated for multiple Grammys, including both Song of the Year and Record of the Year. It became a major influence on a range of later singers. Beyoncé claimed the song made her want to be a singer. Interestingly, Mariah won for Best Female Vocal Performance, but the category was not in R&B, it was in pop. Now, if aliens landed down from Mars and asked me to play a pop song, Vision of Love would never cross my mind. Yes, the song was popular, but it didn't reside within the genre of pop. Mariah has stated herself, she wrote it from an R&B place and it was geared towards that kind of R&B sound.
So it was geared for an R&B audience, and that's where I wrote it, from that place.
It's also important to note that Vision of Love went to #1 on the R&B chart, which at the time was called the Black Chart, before it peaked in the pop world. This definitely was a song which, in part, finally acknowledged in a positive way her father and her black roots, which were so often tarnished with shame. Mariah was making music that celebrated urban sounds in a confident, celebratory fashion. However, the label, shocker, were adamant that Mariah would be portrayed as a non-threatening girl next door, fundamentally white. And although Vision of Love fought hard against that ideal, the label pressured Mariah into recording more middle-of-the-road pop ballads in order to whitewash her, and as a result, her next single, Love Takes Time, took a more calculated, safe route.
After that, it was like, we need another pop ballad. I know how to do that too. Like, I know how to write down the middle. Like, I get it. So when you're asked and you're a 19-year-old girl, well, we need another pop ballad. They want a simplistic ballad. I wrote Love Takes Time. It's cute and it'll do what it needs to do. And
as a result, it's not surprising that Vision of Love would be incorrectly categorized as pop, because this was no mistake. This was the agenda. The agenda of executives to crush one half of Mariah's identity for monetary success. Her third single, Someday, also fell into the same murky water. The original demo that Mariah conceived was, quote, funky and one of her favourite songs. However, the label, in Mariah's opinion, overproduced the track, and what we can see is a singer with legitimate talent, both vocally and in terms of songwriting, that was fighting hard against a machine that wanted to camouflage her mixed race and, more importantly, black identity. Now, one of the more interesting turns in Mariah's career is her follow-up album, the deeply underrated Emotions. On this project, and off of the huge success of her debut, Mariah was given far more creative control. She fought hard to include 70s-inspired disco, funk, even jazz inspiration on some songs. And this was not just a straightforward pop album, it took what I believe Vision of Love did by amalgamating and celebrating the cultural melting pot that lived within Mariah and tackled multiple genres.
Right, well, Emotions was my first effort as a producer. I co-produced the whole album, and it was a lot of fun, but more importantly, it really gave me a chance to be very intricately involved in every aspect of the recording, and I loved it.
However, although many of these songs, including the title track or the gospel-influenced Make It Happen, went on to become signature Mariah tracks within the Lamely universe, the album underperformed. It sold considerably less, charted only one #1 single instead of 4, and in fact, Tommy Mottola, the head of Columbia Records, pulled the second single from the shelves in order to drive up sales of the album. Now, there are many reasons why Emotions underperformed. There was controversy towards some of the samples used, which led to legal cases. Some argue it was just too soon after the debut and that the fire was still burning from her first album, which overshadowed her second. And some will argue that the taste at the time just did not like Mariah Carey's soaring, high-octane vocals. But what is very important is that it set off a huge chain of reactions which resulted in the label hardening their stance on Mariah's public image. Mariah had been given the freedom to record an album that leaned heavily towards disco, soul, and not just commercial pop. Unfortunately, that attempt had failed in the eyes of the executives. For the next number of years, Mariah would be marketed as the Doris Day of the 1990s, non-threatening pop, almost like a 5-octave Disney princess.
I felt like I didn't fit into the boxes that people cut out for us to be put into so they can feel more comfortable.
However, the vocals would become more restrained, the success would become both enormous and global, and accusations of whitewashing would become even louder. In the next episode of this series, we'll be looking at her move from budding diva to revered chanteuse, and the behind-the-scenes struggles regarding her personal identity, musical autonomy, and pursuit of inclusivity. Hi, I'm Diva Talk, and thanks for watching.